So it is now Tuesday. Everyone else has gone to lunch, but I've already had lunch, so it's fine. I've decided to swap around some of my my planning things. So I was originally going to do the skirt raffle on Thursday, because I was trying to get the sort of main body of the dress done today. So that would be the waistband, sewing up the apron, working on the skirt placket so it can be attached to the skirt, and then Wednesday was going to be working on the sleeves. But because I am going to be looking at the petticoats from the Perfectly stores on Wednesday to try and figure out how much volume I need for the petticoat, I've decided to switch it round to doing the sleeves on Thursday instead. But that does mean that I want to get the ruffle pleated and sewn to the skirt today, because then I will have the full weight of the garment on Wednesday, so I can get a better accurate idea of the structure needed for the petticoat. I managed to sew together the strips of lace. I had to do a little bit of thinking for it because I had put it through because the lace has a selvage on it. So I was trying to sew those like back to back as like a seam. But I put it through the hand crank machine and the industrial machines, and the lace just sort of like shriveled up. It did not like the stitching or whatever. So I've decided to put tissue paper behind it while I sew, which has helped a lot. But then the other problem I had was that the selvage, while it made a decent base for a seam, it looks really, really clunky, and I can potentially hide the lace joins in box pleats, but I don't want to have to rely on that. So I've been trying to figure out different ways of doing it. One of the ways was I tried like overlapping the selvages and then zigzag stitching on top to try and also help with some of the issues sewing the lace, but that looks really, really chunky and gross. So what I did was I cut about an inch away from the selvage where the pattern had like a nice sort of like line where the repeat went, and then I overlapped it onto the other side to match up the pattern, and then zigzagged over the join, and then cut away the excess on the back, which has worked really, really, really well. But the trouble is that I've lost a good few inches of the lace, which is a bit of a problem because I laid it against the ruffle panel, and it would have been just about enough width-wise to match the ruffle panel, which would have been fine because then it would have pleated down nicely to match the skirt, because everything is like panel widths. But obviously now I've lost all that space, all that it's only about 25 centimeters, but it's sort of enough to make a difference. So what I will have to do is I will have to jiggle the box pleats around to fit instead. I'm still trying to figure out the best way of doing that. I was originally going to hem the ruffle first. I'm still trying to figure out the best way to do that, because if I had the time to do it, I would be doing herringbone stitches because I don't want it to be visible on the opposite side. But obviously that's going to be very time consuming because I have a lot of ruffles here. I have 9 widths, which is 18, about 20, at least about 20 meters, I think. A considerable amount anyway. So that's going to take me quite a long time, which I could be spending on other things. So the next option would be to sew it on the machine, which is also doable, but I'm not too happy about doing it that way just because the stitching would be visible. The next option would be to sew it using the embroidery floss with like the big heavier stitches that I've been using on the collar. That would mean that I'd have to go home and get my black embroidery floss because I don't want to use the blue. Or I could use no, I don't want to use white, do I? Black would probably be better. And I have enough of that to do that reasonably well, but that means that it's going to be more difficult to alter that hemline if it needs to come down for any reason. And also that's kind of all that's holding the hem up. So if that embroidery floss goes in any place, then that's kind of, it's going to be annoying to repair. The next thing I could think of to have that, if I still wanted that stitching effect, would be to tack where the hem line is going to be, which is about 1 inch up from the edge of the fabric, and then stitch just on the right side of the fabric with the sort of like black chunky stitches, and then I can hem it later. But again, that is going to be a lot of hand sewing that I need to figure out. I'm not entirely sure what I want to do about this yet. So the minute to stay on schedule, I would need to get basically I need to have this ruffle done today. So I don't know if maybe I could go back and stitch it later after I've got it attached to the skirt, which could be an option, and just sort of like tack the hem line up for now, because there's also the issue of where the ruffle joins to make a loop. I kind of want it to pleat down that way, but if I've already hemmed the edge, then that's going to be a little bit untidy on the inside. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to flat tack the seam allowance on the top edge where it's going to adjoin to the skirt, and then lay the lace along it just to see how much fabric I'm working with, and then start thinking about box pleating it down. I should be able to do that fairly easily, and then I can think about attaching it to the skirt. I'll also need to double check the skirt length and where I need to maybe do flat tacking for the like hemline and seam allowance on that as well, just because I know I added a little bit extra in case the skirt needed to be lengthened for any reason. So I'll probably hide that down in the ruffle, but I need to be conscious of that when I'm trying to sew together the ruffle and the skirt.